All right, we're live.
All right, let's try this. We think we got some of these bugs worked out for the live portion of our endeavor. We're gonna do some Q&A. We got about three, four, five things that came in from Twitter or X, whichever you'd like to call it. We got Janik Eckhart from Germany. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm great. How are you?
Not bad. Producer Tyler, how goes it?
I'm doing well, man. Almost to training camp. Can't wait.
Yeah, if we have our first rounder show up, that'd be even better. And that should be. We'll see if somebody chimes in about that bad boy. On Sunday is when the festivities kick off. But we have the think 3 questions already. And then if you are watching live, it looks 2 of you gracious souls are. Probably one is my mother. Start asking the questions, and we'll line them up. We'll knock them down. Tyler, what's the first question you want to proffer to Janik?
Yeah, Janik. Which non-first round draft pick do you think will be the best value for this season? This was asked by Johnny B. Skoll, who's been on our show before. Shout out to Johnny.
Okay, so this answer would have been different 2 weeks ago. Was a big fan of Kyrie Jackson, but the tragic events just prevented him from seeing the field for us, which obviously is not as important as the personal tragedy. From a football perspective, I think it's Will Reichard, the kicker, simply because I don't see Walter Rouse, who has been on VikesNow before, and Michael Jurgens, the offensive lineman. I don't think they're going to see the field unless we are really bugged by injuries. And Levi Drake Rodriguez might not even make the team. It's a 7th rounder. We'll see. Maybe a rotational guy. But a kicker, he's going to make the team, and he's going to get a ton of kicks. So I think he's going to make the biggest impact.
Yeah, I think on Sunday afternoons, it's for sure Will Reichard, mainly because we have been snake bitten by kickers for a very long time. I mean, it's stabilized here and there thanks to Ryan Longwell. I guess there's probably some folks that really like Greg Joseph, but the Vikings are overdue for an organic kicker of their own to work out. Way overdue. The last time we had one was the good version of Blair Walsh, and he's not remembered fondly by most. So I would agree with Janik that in terms of how your viewing experience, I think Will Reichard will be good. And like all dumb curses, this one is due to end. Like the Vikings are due for a steady kicker that they stick by through hell and high water, even if there's early struggles. Kind of like the Super Bowl thing. I keep saying in Minnesota sports, eventually they're just going to be bing, bang, boom. There's going to be like 3 or 4 straight because the math has to even out. Otherwise, I'm a little bit higher on Levi Drake Rodriguez. I think the Vikings defensive tackle spot is pretty mushy. And if they believed in using a draft pick on him rather than finding an undrafted free agency, I believe that he can turn heads a little bit more. But then after that, like because of Kyrie Jackson's death, it's kind of like, well, after Reichard, you're just looking at reservist guys. So I think by default, I say Reichard for sure because I think he's a baller, and then high hopes for Drake Rodriguez. So you got anything in mop-up duty, Tyler, to do on that one? You should answer the next question yourself first.
Yeah, let me just touch on Levi Drake Rodriguez here. I think between him, Rouse, and Jurgens, he probably has the best chance to make some sort of day one impact. But you guys are absolutely right. It's Reichert. He's the only one of our late round draft picks who's going to be a starter from day one. So that's really the guy you're looking at. And you know, from what Matthew Collar was saying, he looked really good during camp. So, like, just booting the football, 50, 60 yards out.
We should also give shout outs to the UDFA guys, although I don't know that fit the criteria of the question. Gabriel Murphy, we think, is some rendition of this year's Ivan Pace. Probably won't be that good, but we hope makes a roster spot. And then Dwight McLaughlin is like the only super young cornerback in the pipeline after the tragedy. So those 2 guys, I don't know if they fit into the question, but those are guys that you can hope or cross fingers to maybe make the 53-man roster, especially Murphy.
I think wide receiver Deshaun Jones deserves some mention. He received a ton of guaranteed money. He's an older prospect. He spent 6 years at Maryland, had 2 torn ACLs. But when he was on the field, he was quite productive. So maybe he can sneak onto the roster.
Yeah,
and then
we're gonna.
Jalen Redmond's another one too. If you're just looking at, wasn't an undrafted free agent signing, but we did get him off of the UFL. So you're just talking about the lack of defensive line depth. Maybe there's a spot for him if he balls out in camp.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see this wide receiver thing shake out because I don't know if it was on this show or a different show, but I talked about, we can beat WR3 over and over and say, hey, who's it going to be? But now when you have shit happen like with Addison, it's important because you're staring down the barrel of a Sam Darnold offense, throwing the ball to Jefferson, Brandon Powell, and Robert Tonyan, rather than this big, like, hey, he's never had weapons like this, and Addison, Jefferson, Hawkinson. That's why WR3 has been vital to me, at least thinking about it. Isn't because I want to get super rich all over the depth chart. It's because if something happens, Jefferson or Addison, they're going to need somebody. And right now, something might have happened to Addison or because of Addison. So I think this will come up a little bit later. Tyler, what's the next question? You answer it yourself so we don't steal your takes.
Before that, though, we got our first comment.
Oh,
sweet. This is in reply to just who they think of the non-first round draft picks will make an impact. Reichert or Gabriel. I don't think we touched on Gabriel Murphy, but I think he could definitely be outside linebacker number 5 and make the back end of this roster.
You weren't listening. I did.
Wait, you saw it?
No, you weren't listening when I said Gabriel Murphy.
Oh, I thought you said Dwight McLaughlin.
No, I said Murphy and McLaughlin as UDFAs, although I don't know if that was, they asked what late rounder. But no, ultimately for Hofer's heroes, yeah, I agree. Reichert for sure. It just depends on how important one thing kicker is. We weren't supposed to draft a kicker, is what the metrics told us.
The thing with Murphy is he's really short. I think he's in the 1 percentile in arm length and height for outside linebackers. So height could be a problem. It wasn't a problem for Ivan Pace. It wasn't a problem in college, but that's why he dropped. He was productive at UCLA, but we'll see how it translates to the NFL.
Yeah, the Vikings are on a mission to prove that size does not matter. With Ivan Pace and Murphy just trying to scoop all these guys that are smallish and say, hey, he can do the thing.
Yeah, and this next question is, do you guys feel like this team is better than last year's team? If we can stay healthy, do you believe that we can win 11 games? That's from the Fort Myers Vikings fan. To be quite honest with you, okay. So I do think we're better than last year, just overall roster wise. Yes, we lost Kirk, but I think we got better defensively, and I think our run game got better. So it's just going to be a different sort of team. You're not going to throw it 40 times a game. You're going to rely on Aaron Jones in the defense, and that's going to be your recipe to trying to win games. Do I think we can win 11? Yeah, but I wouldn't expect it. Like, I'm looking at closer to, 8-9 wins on the season. I think 11 would be great. I'm not saying it's not a possibility, but I wouldn't look at that as sort of the standard or the expectation for this season. But I do think the overall roster is better than last year. So it's a bit of a mixed bag there.
I do not see 11 wins. I don't know. I mean, with complete respect to the question, I don't see how one can unless you already have scripted Darnold's reclamation. So, no, I think the last year's team, I swear to God, had truly turned the corner the moment Cousins got hurt. And I'm pretty damn sure that they would have won at least 2 or 3 more if that didn't happen, which would make them 10-7 or so. So the defense per personnel has certainly improved, and there's a case to make for continuity, finally, for the coaching staff. But for me to say on this show in July that this team is better, I can't do that with a straight face until I know if Darnold is not Darnold anymore or McCarthy is the real deal. So I firmly expect them to be about 7-10 or 8-9. But, Vikings history has shown that, quarterbacks show up and reclamations work. But right now, I don't think they're going to win 11 games. And a lot of that is because the NFC North, like with the snap of two fingers, became brutally good.
So we made a ton of changes in the offseason. Pass rushing group is completely changed. I think it's better than last year because it's not all on one guy. Shaq Griffin might play a role. Blake Cashman, Aaron Jones, of course. He's an upgrade over Alexander Mattison. But it all comes down to quarterback. It's what's going to happen in the NFL. The quarterback stinks. Your team stinks. And we'll see if Sam Darnold comes in and his Kirk Cousins drops 30 touchdowns, 10 picks. This might be a decent team and probably in playoff contention. But if he's playing like Sam Darnold and JJ McCarthy is playing like a rookie, you're probably looking at 7 wins, maybe 8, and that's about it.
Yeah, I keep coming back to the turnover stat that I tweeted a couple weeks ago. So for those that are new to that, when a Kevin O'Connell-led team, so the last 2 years, when they win or break even on the turnover battle, they are 17-0. They are the Patriots from 2007. When they lose the turnover battle, they're 3-14. They're the Panthers from last year. And of course, like when you turn the ball over, you're not going to win as much. But that variance is so strange and not becoming of the NFL. The Vikings are all or nothing with the turnovers. So I would like to think, well, yeah, easy. They'll protect the ball. They're going 11-6, baby. But they signed a quarterback who the only thing really wrong with Darnold is turnovers. So he's going to have to fix that on the fly. And I just don't know if there's precedent for a quarterback fixing his turnovers. Otherwise, you just keep Nick Mullins. So that's why I can't say for certain that this team is better. It's to Janik's point that while the defense has certainly improved per personnel, and I love the coaching continuity, I just don't buy it yet that Darnold is going to be fixed. And we're going to see here in the training camp preseason, he's going to look great. He always does that. But I don't know if it's going to translate because we would have seen it in 6 seasons by now.
So I want to add, we might really be the 07 Patriots because both lost to the Giants in the playoffs.
All right, I cut you off, Tyler. What were you going to say?
Yeah, speaking of making comparisons to other teams, I feel like the 2024 Vikings are very similar to the 2023 Buccaneers because before last season, no one thought Tampa Bay was going to do much of anything that year. And we played Tampa Bay week 1, was it? And, they were surprisingly good. I don't think most people expected them to put up much of a fight. People were low on Baker Mayfield at the time. You look at the division around them. The Saints had just signed Derek Carr to a big deal. The Falcons were loading up on defense. The Panthers had Bryce Young, who a lot of people were excited for. So no one really saw the Buccaneers coming, and yet I think they won the division last year. So, I mean, I'm not saying the Vikings are going to win the division in 2024. I think the NFC North's a lot tougher with Detroit and Green Bay. But, as sort of that third team, everyone's looking at Chicago. And it's like, oh, they have Caleb Williams. And he's going to start right away. So the Bears over the Vikings is a popular pick in terms of who would you rather have at third. I don't think the gap between Chicago and Minnesota is that large, though. I think Caleb Williams, he plays football like he's Superman. Like he always wants to make the big highlight reel play, and that's going to have to be reeled in. So it wouldn't shock me if Caleb Williams struggled the first few weeks of the season, and that could lead to the Vikings taking third place to start the year. So that'll be interesting just to see how that unfolds. But this next question here, we kind of got this last week too. But Eric the Red asks, what does our week 1 tight end group look like? Who makes the roster, and will that group be functional until Hockenson returns? Do you want to go, Dustin?
Yeah, I'll take this one out of the gate. So even if TJ Hockenson trends in the right direction, I bet they take it easy with him because that injury was so close to the end of the regular season. I don't think they're going to gun it because this coaching staff, front office, rightfully never guns it. You can watch receiver and learn all about that with Jefferson's recovery. So I tweeted something yesterday about Tanyan as the presumptive TE1, and there was some clapback that was like, "Hey, what makes you think that?" And I was like, "Well, the guy has the most experience, and he looked like a baller at minicamp." So I would say as a pass catching target, it'll be Tanyan. But the Vikings, we already know the O'Connell Vikings love Johnny Munt, so we know he's going to be right there, and then Josh Oliver will do Josh Oliver things. So I think it's actually quite easy that Hawkinson will either hit the PUP list or miss the first few games. Tanyan will catch the ball in the middle of the field. Josh Oliver will hopefully help the run game. And then Johnny Munt will be in there for 3 targets per game with Nick Muse on the practice squad. I don't buy the N'Keal Harry experiment being worth a damn. Hell, we need a WR3. Should have stayed as a wide receiver. So yeah, it's pretty easy to me. And unless I've totally misjudged this, Tanyan to me is the TE1. Janik?
Yeah, I basically agree with you. Josh Oliver, he has been outstanding as a blocker. I think the fans just don't really see that because they just look at the running back on running plays, but he's been really good in that department. He's not going to suddenly catch 60 passes next season. So he's going to stay in his role. They like Johnny Munt. Robert Tonyan has been really good in minicamp and OTAs. So that's probably the top 3 guys. We'll see what happens with N'Keal Harry. Maybe it's just not going to work out. Maybe it is. Probably it's not. But so it's those 3 guys. Maybe undrafted rookie Knox can somehow make some noise. But it's probably those 3 guys.
Yeah, they got 8 of them, and they'll probably keep 3 plus Hawkinson. Tyler, what say you?
Yeah, I think the 4 is pretty solid with Tanyan, Oliver, Munt, and Muse until Hawkinson comes back and occupies a roster spot there, and then maybe you send Muse back to the practice squad, or Tanyan if he underperforms, honestly, because I think he'll be practice squad eligible. So, I mean, that's pretty much your 4 right there. I don't think like Trey Knox or N'Keal Harry has any shot of beating Nick Muse.
South American guy.
Yeah, the guy who doesn't count as a real roster spot because he's part of the international player program. That's no diss to him. I mean, that must be really nice knowing that you don't count as a roster spot and you're probably just going to stay in the same place regardless. Like I'd love to be in that position. But yeah, I think the tight end group is pretty solid with those 4. But what's more interesting to me is the whole JJ McCarthy situation. A couple months back, it was alluded to by Pretty Ricky, I guess, who is a somewhat of an insider, apparently. Take it with a grain of salt. But him and Charlie Walters, it's crazy, alluded to JJ McCarthy wanting his entire signing bonus up front immediately. If not, he might hold out to begin training camp. Me personally, I initially thought it was bull crap because I wasn't going to take Pretty Ricky's word for anything. It's like, well, you're not Tom Pelissero or someone that I know is reliable, but it feels like it's trending that way. And I've seen a lot of people say like, well, why is he trying to hold out for the signing bonus all in one lump sum? And like, what does it matter that he gets the signing bonus all at once? Well, investing 101, right? If you get your signing bonus up front, he can put that all towards investments, and then he'll actually make more money that way just by year over year, as opposed to getting it in smaller lump sums. You can have, interest work for him. But aside from the financial part of it, though, what are your guys' thoughts?
I felt the same thing in June when that tweet came out. Like, To me, this doesn't really matter because McCarthy's going to be the quarterback. It's so whether or not he's there Sunday or he's there Thursday or whenever, it doesn't matter to me. They're not going to let him whittle into eternity. And Dallas Turner's right there with him, and so is Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze. So it's not like McCarthy is the only guy that wants this. The only thing for me that would make my eyes roll is that if he's not there Sunday, we're just on this downward spiral of bad or weird shit happening to the Vikings. We had when Janik and I were in Norway at the beginning of June, everything was exciting about the Vikings, at least the way he and I were talking. Like, new quarterback, the defense looks sweet, Brian Flores is back, the future is bright. And then after Kyrie Jackson died, Jordan Addison's arrested, your quarterback's going to hold out, TJ Hawkinson's hurt. Like, you start, all these negatives start compounding, and I get questions from Vikings fans like, doesn't it feel like this thing has just been flipped on its face? Well, yeah, it does a little bit. The good news is that one sweet play at training camp can reignite everything. On the whole, I guess it's a little strange that the Vikings and Bears have the first rounders that are playing hardball. But who was it? Ben Gessling said yesterday on K-Fan with Eric Nordquist that the deadline spur action. And I think that they will have this done by training camp, so they avoid the Sunday thing where your two billboard guys aren't there. It's a non-issue for me. It just will make my eyes roll if it's another thing I have to write about as a controversy.
So for me, obviously it raises some eyebrows, but honestly, they're going to figure it out on day 1 or day 2 at training camp, and then we just forget about it. That's always what's happening. These holdouts and stuff. I don't think that's gonna be even an issue in 2-3 weeks. So for now, it's just a nothing burger unless it really trickles into training camp. Then we should start to talk about it. But now it's whatever.
Yeah, in that regard, if we assume that Turner and McCarthy sign the dotted line Thursday or Friday or something, then we're almost lucky that we don't have any major holdouts, because Jefferson, in theory, could have dragged this thing all the way through. We usually had an annual Danielle Hunter saga. That's not around anymore. So I think that we're going to be in a good spot if the rookies just sign their contracts. The last thing I want to mention to you guys, I've had folks email me, ask me about what will Jordan Addison's punishment be, which is a really tricky question to predict or answer without knowing the full details. Tyler, so the guy was asleep blocking freeway traffic in Los Angeles. No mention of his blood alcohol level. July Jordan Addison is not a good thing. Let's just get that out there. July Addison should be banished to those words. He should just stay at home in July. Last year, he was popped for driving 140 miles per hour in somewhere in the Twin Cities. And then now whatever this is. I hope this is resolved as some big misunderstanding. But I guess if I had to predict, some suspension, 2 or 3 games to make a statement, feels like it's on the way. Are you there, Tyler, or are you just gonna wait before you give any prediction?
I'm pretty close to that. I mean, July Jordan Addison's never a good thing, like you said. But
almost to the day, almost the year to the day.
We do have a sort of benchmark for this already, because this offseason, Wes Phillips got in a DUI. Now, reports are saying that maybe Jordan Addison, it was the DUI because they released him after 2 hours and there was no mention of his blood alcohol level. And it was perhaps suspected that, he was taking edibles, which are legal in California, but it's still impaired driving nonetheless. I feel like regardless if it's edibles or alcohol, it doesn't really matter. Wes Phillips got 3 weeks. He was suspended. You suspend Jordan Addison for 3 weeks during the preseason. I mean, it's basically a slap on the wrist because he was hardly going to play in the preseason.
Can they do that?
I mean, I don't see why not. I mean,
why wouldn't every team suspend their guy then for the preseason?
Well, if it's a suspension issued by the team, they can do whatever they want. Okay. If it's issued by the league, then it's off the team's hands. So it really just depends if it was a DUI and it goes into the hands of the league, or if it's something that the Vikings can control on their own. But if I were Kevin O'Connell, I'd suspend him all of the preseason, and then fine him And then from there, I would just tell the locker room, look, we had a teammate who was a victim of drunk driving. This isn't going to fly from here on out. If I catch anyone drinking and driving, you're missing a game and you're getting fined, because the alternative is you kill someone and you miss several games versus you get caught, I punish you, you miss a game. So like, don't do it. Like, regardless if you do it or not, you're gonna miss games. Or I mean, if you get suspended or not, you're gonna miss games in some capacity. One's just way worse because you killed someone and now it's a huge deal and you're going to jail and you ruined your career. So Kevin O'Connell's really got to kind of put his foot down after this and says, hey, we're not going to put up with this anymore.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check on that preseason thing, because it feels like it's when my 7-year-old, if I take his tablet away and I'm like, you can keep that computer, but I'm taking your tablet. It kind of feels like that's what that is. Janik, Addison, are you going to wait to adjudicate, or do you think this will end in a suspension?
Oh man, that's really hard to predict because we don't have any information, basically. So from the league perspective, they will wait until they have every single piece of information. It might even take a year or more. So nothing will be happening anytime soon from the league's perspective. Now, from the Vikings perspective, Tyler alluded to it. Kyrie Jackson just died. I don't know if he can just walk into the locker room and everyone is going to be happy about it. So maybe they just tell him, you know what, don't report to training camp for a week. I don't know if they should or would do that. No idea. But yeah, typically teams don't suspend players. That's coming from the league. Teams just, I don't know, they think players are too valuable to just not have them here. I don't know. So that's a really strange situation. If I had to guess, everything is just gonna continue to be like normal to some extent, and until the league suspends him or not.
That what you were talking about, sometimes the length of the process, that reminded me of the Dalvin Cook thing. Do you remember, like, leading into the 2021 or 2022 season, there was like that tweet from, was it Adam Schefter, that made Cook look like a victim? And then it turned out that may not have been true. That thing was slow rolled all the way until he was like off the Vikings. Like, there was nothing. It's weird that the controversies or the violations and infractions have like a scale. Like, that one I remember popped and it was like, well, how's this one going to come? And then I think finally something happened this offseason, but who cares? The guy's washed. So we shall see what happens to Addison. All right, gentlemen. We got through those questions, even though we only had 3 out of the gate. Congratulations. We'll be back next week. We'll get the question fill, or the hopper fill, with more questions. And by the time we're here next week, we'll be talking about some nuggets of training camp. All right.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. We'll talk to you guys in a week. Later.
See ya.